Hi, it's Demetrius.
Hey, Demetrius, it's Mark. They're in.
Nice. Taking it to the next level.
Launching Phase 2 of Gable Media on October 7th. 7th.
I don't really know where we're going to land with this, but we have an idea for a new format for the show. And so, Cormac, you and I have been talking about this, and we thought we should try something new in this new era of what the hell's coming next that we live in.
Exactly.
We're gonna play along with that, and we're gonna change up the format of Archispeak and see what our audience thinks. And actually, we're more interested to see what we think about it because we're the ones who do it. So I think this is an experiment that we'll do out in the open, and we would love to get feedback on it. But basically, the gist of it is, instead of once every 2 weeks, we're thinking we can change this up and actually make this happen to make it twice per week, but much shorter, more digestible episodes.
Yeah.
Does that make as a kickoff here?
That sounds great.
To use a sports analogy that you would enjoy, because there's no sports, or is there sports? I don't even know.
Yes, Mr. Hibernation. There are sports now, and in fact,
good to hear.
The sports that do kickoffs are back as well.
Wow! See, I was just channeling the energy that's out there. It was right there for me.
Yeah,
I nailed it. So we're thinking twice a week, 20 minutes per episode, and we're going to try really hard to keep it around that, so that, if not hit that exactly, so that we can keep these digestible and to the point. And, let's have fun with this. Let's see what happens, and maybe make adjustments in the future, but maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah.
Sound good? We can cram this in over a lunch hour,
It's your lunch hour, man.
This time. It won't always be. Yeah.
So if we do it on mine, that means it's going to be your breakfast time. Ooh, we could have breakfast and lunch together.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's have brunch. Let's brunch with Evan and Cormac. So I just installed 2 windows, and I've got that great stuff, expanding foam insulation, all over my hands. So I probably shouldn't type anything.
Yeah,
been a morning wrestling with glass,
and don't lick your fingers either. So I don't think that's actually good for your health.
Toxic. Well, I think one thing that this kind of different format will allow us to do is talk about things that are a little more timely. I think that a lot of the previous episodes over the last 7.5, 8 years have been things that are probably less timely and more evergreen content. And I think we still want to do that for sure. But I also don't know that there's that many people who go back and listen to old episodes. So this might give us an opportunity to talk about some stuff that's going on right now, especially if we're doing this a couple times a week and short bursts.
I like the idea because, one, it does kind of give us what's fresh on our mind now, what's fresh on the mind of the profession. And it just gives us the opportunity to be able to, kind of address, the current thinkings of things. I mean, because as we see, everything is changing so quickly. And especially, with the whole work from home philosophy and all of that other stuff, the profession is changing ever so quickly. And so, to be kind of on the pulse of what is going on and just having that kind of fresh perspective of what is the next, bend around the corner kind of thing, I think is something that I'm looking forward to it. Again, as you said, it's an experiment. And we'll see.
You just nailed it, because that, to me, is what better thing to do than to document the changes that we're going through kind of in real time. I think that's a fantastic way to put it, because, like you said, we're keeping our fingers on the pulse, but it's also coming from the inside, and we can share those experiences as they happen, because they are very time-based, and they're not... They might be something that somebody wants to go back and study later, and this is a good way to kind of document the changes that we went through along this, because, man, like you said, things are changing so fast, and I think we're hitting some of that during the bigger episodes. But I don't think that
Right.
we have the opportunity to kind of keep up with it at that pace. So I think this pace maybe makes a little bit more sense for that.
Yeah, and one of the things that we said in one of the more recent episodes, and was kind of even punctuated by when we were talking about the REI headquarters, and they had this brand new campus built for them, and decided not to move into it because they changed their business model, because the world was changing, because things change so quickly now. And so I think it's kind of like, okay, what's the next thing around? So I think, yeah.
And even to that story, it's already changed, right? You sent me a message.
Exactly.
And it was like,
Right.
holy crap, that went fast. They sold it already.
So it went on the market, and then almost immediately it was snatched up by Facebook.
And so they're doubling down on physical space while REI
Right.
is doubling down on remote work.
And what did you say? You said it's just like, what's amazing about that is that REI, who is reliant on, basically a brick and mortar type store type thing, and yeah, they've got their online, but maybe more like a brick and mortar thing, they're being more mobile. And the people who should be more mobile, the tech giant, is actually being more brick and mortar.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of philosophical thing on one level that Facebook works. What I said is they operate in the digital world like 100%.
Yeah.
And REI's, what they're selling is for people to use in the real world, the physical world, and they're kind of like swapping how they operate. So that, but I mean, in opposition to those kind of philosophies. It's kind of interesting. I also think it's interesting that Facebook is basically saying, there is value in how we work to being in the same place at the same time. And I'm sure there's lots and lots of guidelines and weird logistics going on to make that happen. But then REI is basically saying, yeah, we've got stores, but their headquarters, in quotes, doesn't need to be a physical space. And they've found that working from home and having maybe multiple smaller headquarters that are more laid out in a distributed fashion where their people are, that seems to make more sense for them. And I could see REI's kind of position from like a carbon footprint standpoint and how much they care about the environment as a member of REI myself. I mean, that to me does kind of take a stand that we don't need all
Right.
this stuff, and we can do a lot more of this over the digital pipes that exist, and we can maybe help make the world a better place. And I'm not saying Facebook's doing the opposite of that. I just think it's a different, maybe a reassuring that they are actually really in on their philosophy there.
Right.
So, interesting stuff.
Actually, what's interesting is, and I'm sure your office is discussing this as well, but as much as people are encouraging people to take vacation, obviously, people can't, in the traditional sense of, in some cases, and yeah, we've both tried to do, a social distance type one where, yeah, we'll go on vacation, but it'll be as far away from civilization as possible.
Right.
But, so our office has, been talking about really worried about just making sure people don't suffer burnout. I mean, because I don't know how many times you've logged in at just, miscellaneous hours of the day or night or whenever, just kind of based off of like your own like fluidity of the way you may be working. And you'll see, some of your team members on logged on as well. And then I'll shoot them like a quick Zoom and say, hey, what are you doing awake? And like, oh, I was just, I left a little bit early, so, I wanted to come and, catch up on some things that I was, thinking about or needing to accomplish today. And so this seemed to be a good time. Everybody was asleep, blah, 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 which is great because, that's one of the interesting things that we've talked about on like how working from home kind of affords you the opportunity. But it's not like a lot of times when people, especially now that school's back in session, and a lot of people that I know, and especially on my team, have kids going back to school or spouses that are teachers. And so it's not like when you kind of step away from the computer, you're actually stepping away from work or life responsibilities and things like that. So there's really no opportunity to take some form of vacation or just wind down a little bit and, kind of detach from work a little bit so that you can kind of like refresh yourself. And so, that has been something that we've been talking about in the office about, just the worry that people are going to try to work themselves to death through all of this. And yeah, I got this, and it's just like, well, do you? But then, we're getting to the point of like, now we're in Q4 of this year, and a lot of people still have like all of their, PTO or vacation time or whatever anybody calls it left over. And so they're, really wondering, what's next. A lot of times, a lot of firms are use it or lose it, or you get to roll it over or whatever. And it's going to get to a point where people may have, if things stay the way they are and people aren't using their stuff, they're going to roll over like months worth of vacation time. And
yeah, or hit up against those caps, right? Which is then basically like you're not getting that benefit.
Exactly. Or you really are just suffering the overwork.
Yeah, it's funny because I was kind of feeling the other day like I was definitely missing aspects of going into the office, and I was talking about that with Jessie, and we were just talking about how she's like, well, who do you miss talking to? And I said, oh, I love running into Tom, the senior PA. And he's like, well, why? Well, we shoot the shit. We talk about cars. We talk about how he's solving a problem on a building that he solved 50 times, or how he's solving a problem for the first time in all of his career, and he's never seen anything like this. And to me, it's just like, it's those kind of chance encounters, but either something that we're interested in together or something that, is architectural in nature, just comes out of that conversation that might be useful for me in the future. I don't see that happening as much for people. And so that's one thing that I really do miss. I also miss just going down to the iced coffee machine with my friends. And then Jesse's like, well, yeah, but now you've kind of replaced that time with actual work. And so you are actually getting way more done than you ever have before. And it's true. Like, she's absolutely right. And I also wonder like what the toll of that is on our physical being, our mental state, because it's just different. It's not what you're used to. And it's not a bad thing. I think it's actually good to kind of push those limits, those comfort zones around every once in a while in your life. Not only to see what you're capable of, but to see maybe take a second look at it and say, why do I like this, or why don't, or why isn't this working for me?
Well, I'll say that whereas I do agree and appreciate the comment that your wife made about being able to get more work done, or it seems like in some cases just piling more work on than, like doubling it up. It's like, oh, I don't have to do the commute time, or I don't have to go to the water cooler or whatever. And so I can just keep throwing more and more stuff on.
Yeah.
But the thing about that is, and we've talked about this on several different occasions, about there is something to the value of camaraderie. There is something to the value of chance hearing another conversation, which may actually help you get past like some issue that you might be working on that you didn't even think to go and ask that person. You're like, whoa, wait, you're trying to build a building over a campus utility tunnel that also means that, you have to do all of this phase construction and stuff. Tell me how you're approaching it, because that's what I'm doing right now. And I'd love to have, those conversations with people that, those chance encounters and stuff that really kind of help. Because I look at, we always talk about mentoring, and a lot of people think that mentoring is, just like from top down kind of thing. And really we've talked about mentoring is that it's, it's top down, bottom up. It's everybody in between. And the opportunities like that of being able to just have these chance conversations, having somebody overhear somebody else talk about things where maybe people who understand the programs are trying to work through a detail where they understand how to maneuver through the program, but they don't know how to maneuver through the detail. And so that's when you get to sit down and you can talk about, okay, here's how I would do this detail, but show me how you would draft it in here, or model it here, or do whatever it is that we need to do for documentation or whatever else. And those chance encounters of being able to kind of like teach each other some things that we just don't know, or just that's what I kind of miss. I will say this, that I did actually go into the office yesterday.
Tell us your experience.
So we actually had a social distancing materials. So basically we were trying to pick final materials, final colors and things so that we can get them all together, get samples ordered, start pulling all of that stuff together so that we can present it to the client. But, we wanted to make sure that we talked through basically all of our exterior finishes and how they translate into the interior, and then all of those interior finishes all the way up the building. And it was interesting that obviously we set up a bunch of foldable tables outside the office, right on kind of like our little promenade outside of the office. And we had, one area that was set up for all of our exterior finishes so that we could see, like the clarity of the glazing and everything else that we were selecting. And then on the, another series of tables, we had all of our interior finishes, and then we were able to like have one person kind of traverse back and forth between them. Or if one person said, ooh, let me see this and this together, how is the interior finishes that are immediately behind that glass going to look through the glass? And it was kind of fun. It was something that was sorely missed. It was just one of the, it's like, oh my God, other humans.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, so we just went over the 6-month mark of work from home. And that's crazy, right, to think of. But I was wondering, like, what your human emotional state was when you saw these other people and what that was like. Because I haven't experienced this yet.
Kind of wanted to give them all a hug, but we couldn't.
Yeah, I bet.
It's just like, can't shake a hand, can't give you a hug, can't just say, dude, And it was kind of weird because, again, nobody saw anybody's faces because we all had masks on, and we were all standing, 6 feet apart and kind of sort of shouting at each other, which was a little surreal. I was just like, I only shout at you when I'm angry. Yeah. I'm not angry. I'm happy. And I'm shouting. But it was so weird. We talk to these people on a daily basis. Whether it's hearing their voices or seeing them on a Zoom call or just Zoom chatting with them. We're in constant contact with our team. And so, it's not like we have been out of sight, out of mind. It's just we've been out of sight. And so to like actually see them was a completely different feeling. And it was almost as if we were meeting each other for the first time, at least in the, like visual connection of each other. It's just like, oh, that's what you look like.
Wow.
Or, dude, that's what you're going to do with your hair?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, I bet that was fun. Talk about like a change of scenery. That had to be a big deal.
And it was so needed. In fact, actually, we've had this just crazy week of marathon meetings. The client does what's called a tech review. And so we give them a progress set of documents. They review them. We get a big list of, comments back, and then we respond to those comments. And then we have these long kind of like 3-hour block meetings with MEP or controls or, fire safety and all these like little micro committees. We have all of these little meetings for them. And so we've basically been doing that since early Monday morning all the way through midday today, actually. And so they've been rough. And so, not rough, just it was those meetings kind of, you always have to have the discussions, making sure that everybody is, kind of in agreement of what everybody's doing, make sure that, what is being specified or what is being detailed is what, the client wants, and is kind of making sure expectations are being met is essentially what all of these are. And so they're just long, they're big, drawn out conversations, making sure all of that stuff is done. But, they can be kind of taxing, and you absolutely get nothing else done but that. Because that's really kind of like the task at hand. And so I was standing next to someone yesterday, and they were just like, oh yeah, by the way, did you get my email from Monday? I'm like, man, I haven't looked at a single email all week. And this was on a Thursday. And, they're just like, oh, well, then here, let me summarize it for you. I'm like, see, this is what we typically never do. Because, just these chance conversations and, just like, oh, if you didn't get this information, let's just talk about it right now. And, even pull out like I saw people sketching.
What?
Sketching. People were sketching.
Truly a lost art now.
It was beautiful to see.
Oh, man. Just wait till you see somebody like building a little study model. That would be amazing.